So when we talk about writing, ghost writing, article writing, novella, fiction, biographies, etc., what I think it truly means would always boil down to the content, right? Because at the end of the day, we might take different approaches, different angles, or even different focal points as to how we want to begin developing content. Are we going to get creative with our content? Are we going to churn out a fictional book? Are we going to write a technical white paper, a brochure? At the core of all of these different formats is always the content, because the content will will actually dictate the direction that, or rather showcase, that would be a more accurate word, showcase what we're trying to say in the most accurate, precise and concise method. So if we are now to just look at the core, which is content, it further delves deeper into the format of the content, right? So while yes, each individual possesses his own unique style as to how they write content, certain things remain constant forever. And the first one will always be grammar, the second one will always be syntax, and the third remains style. Style is a rather broad concept, because as a writer, the fellow writers listening to this as well, I'm sure you're confident enough to say that you have your own style and nobody could mimic your own style, despite what the AI enthusiasts say with ChatGPT. Each individual has their own cognitive thinking capabilities that makes his own writing style unique. There are obviously a lot of books out there available in the market, like William Strunk's Elements of Style that I've mentioned also earlier. These books can definitely help you, but at the end of the day, it almost mimics a soul searching experience as to how you find that particular style of content and the format you decide to rely on, and the basic rules of grammar and syntax. And all of this, when you marry it together, or rather it comes together synchronously, you get the desired output. And I think that is always going to be what writing means to me. If collecting your thoughts may seem difficult, and for some others it might seem like a walk in the park, but at the end of the day, honing the soft skill of how you develop the content will pave the way towards success as a writer. And I think that has something that I think that ideology has helped me grow as a writer today. So yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I'm your host Sangeeta, aka the Moody Marshmallow. You just heard our guest for today, Nikhil Menon. Nikhil is a professional content developer specializing in future technology. He has written about blockchain, fintech, big data, applied robotics, AI, and much more. He has also written a screenplay for a Malayalam movie in 2016 and has also been a ghostwriter. Tune in to hear about Nikhil's writing journey and how he found a niche for himself in content development. Hi everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. This week I have with me Nikhil Menon. Hi Nikhil, welcome to the show.
Greetings.
Wow, so informal, formal. I don't even know what to say that. Also, context to listeners, Nikhil and I have known each other since we were like 5 or 6. So,
Yes. Sangeeta's been giving me nightmares since I was 7 till 15.
yeah, sure. I think so. Yeah, you can expect, I guess, some banter or some really stupid answers from Nikhil on this show just because he's talking to me. But okay, on a more serious note, the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your earliest memory of being creative, and when did you start writing?
Oh, actually, that's a very good question, because I think it goes back to the past, and a past that actually we all shared, which was back in Lady Andal, right? And I think, I don't know whether you knew, but my favorite teacher in school was only this one lady, this gem of a person. Her name was Janet Roy.
Yeah.
And Janet Roy ma'am was always very encouraging. And I would call myself a scattered writer back in the day, where there was an inclination to be creative with words, but there's obviously no direction, right? When you're looking at a young age, third grade, fourth grade. So you're like 9, 8, 7, 8, 9, around those
Yeah.
ages. So I think she was encouraging because when I used to write my trash that I did back when I was 6 and 7, she was the one who actually sat down with my dad and said, Nikhil definitely has a passion, but it's just a matter of like sandpapering and molding it. So either you encourage him or you ask him to drop it altogether because somebody can go really upright with this. So think about it. That's when my dad started introducing me to books like read. If you like to write, read first. See how the greats did it. See how they wrestle with their own thoughts and put it down, put pen like words into paper, and then go for it. And that's when we all got enrolled into that Cambridge that young
Oh
learners.
yeah. Oh yeah. I remember.
But I actually took that seriously while most didn't.
Same.
Most were just sticking around in the campus after like 2:30. But I was like, no, I'm gonna learn something here. Especially let's start with the foundation, which is grammar, right? Most
Yeah.
people tend to ignore it. And if I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, right? You're very active on LinkedIn. I see that as well. You see this, it's just flooded with pseudo motivational stuff running around where nowadays writers are being encouraged to not know the language thoroughly and just write for the
Yeah.
sake of it. Yeah, that's good. Write for the sake of it. Write a letter to your loved one. Write a letter to a parent. It's fine. Be creative. But when we start moving into the professional world, things start getting rigid, and that's obviously what we'll dive into that a little bit later. But I think my earliest memory was just being nonsensical with my writing,
Mm.
but with the right direction, and of course study. And when you say study, reading the greats how they wrote, I think over time we honed that skill. But I think it really kicked off only after engineering because the suffering of BTech really pushed me to do something with that slight skill set that I had somewhere lurking in the background.
Yeah. No, but so do you remember like the first thing you ever wrote, or at least the first thing you were at least like, wow, I wrote this, even if you were like 5 or 6 or whatever?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what I did. So this is where it gets a little dicey. So I actually wrote like a short story where I think I was in the fourth grade
Oh,
because
okay.
I don't know, it was just something very personal. It was so like rudimentary. It was ballpoint pen on paper, and I wrote it on these couple of sheets, tore it out from a book, and I actually stapled it to look like a book,
Oh
and I
wow.
gave it to my dad. And my dad said, "Wow, this is a great story. You like horror?" I'm like, "Yes," because the first few books I was introduced to was from the legendary Stephen King, right? The first
Okay.
book, the first book I ever read was Pet Cemetery, and
Okay.
and trust me, if I ever become a dad, I'll never introduce my child to Pet Cemetery because that book is scarring, okay, from
Oh
the
my
get go.
god.
Yeah, but I liked horror, and I wrote this really vampirish kind of like a story. And my dad said two things: one, this is a great story. Number two, I know exactly where you lifted the story from. You're plagiarizing. Okay? Because I gave you that book, Nikhil. So,
It's creative
so
freedom.
yeah, like, there's a difference between creative freedom and then highway robbery. I think you should
Yeah.
learn that. But so yeah, so that's why I said dicey. But I think that's the point where you learn. You're right. If you want
Hmm.
to write something, be original, right? So I think that was the first thing I wrote, and from there onwards, it was either I had something new to say, or I
Hmm.
just didn't write. And I think it's interesting because I think from the ages of 14 onwards, I completely lost touch with writing, and I only then picked it up when I went into the workforce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because once you know what happens to us, right, when we get thrown into the abyss of like biomath science groups in 11th and 12th,
I
like,
was
no,
in
no,
commerce, so
I should have just done that. I should just swallowed my pride and ego. I think we come from that lost generation that was still stuck in our parents' time. Like, no, science. Okay, you will only do science. You're doing commerce. What, you don't know how to read? So so, and now when I told my mom, I keep telling my mom, if I just done commerce and just done a BA honors and then maybe done an MA honors in English, maybe who knows, maybe I'd be a much more like successful writer. But then that is subject to like an extrapolated view, and we'll get to that also later.
yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
but no, but that's the thing. It's really interesting because you went and did engineering, and essentially now what you are doing with your job is you're doing technical writing because you are writing about technology and data and AI and all these things and blockchain and whatnot. So it
okay.
kind of
I
ties
want
in, right?
I want to cut you in there. I don't actually club it into technical writing because that's something I learned after joining the workforce. There is
Okay.
another parallel vertical in an organization called technical writing, which is a
Okay.
pure documentation standpoint,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So yeah, so I call myself a product marketing content writer, but
Okay.
for technical ideologies or technical content like that.
Okay.
So yeah. So that I'm not a technical writer because I don't want people to be confused thinking I'm doing other documentation somewhere in the background.
No, no. I'm sorry, Nikhil has clarified this, guys. So please don't take my words seriously here.
No, no, it's
But
a reality check for me as well, right? I'm just showing you the boat that I jumped on recently, right? Hey, get on this boat, Sangeeta. This is the real definition, right? So,
yeah, no, this is why. See, this is why we have these conversations. Very educational and very enlightening. But no, honestly, then how did you kind of, sort of pivot to this? Because I mean, how did you take that call after engineering that okay, this is kind of what I want to try doing or you know go into?
yeah, I think one the minute you said engineering, it kind of speaks volumes and speaks for itself at that point, right? And especially a person like me who ventured into the field of engineering, not knowing exactly what we were going to bite off, and clearly we bit off more than we could chew because engineering was not going to be something you can just skirt through for 4.5 years or 4 years.
Yeah,
And if that is your attitude, you're just going to struggle and suffer with the course. Like I know friends who personally love engineering, right? And they're really successful engineers working in Paris and Netherlands and all of that, right? So
yeah.
those guys should actually venture into the field thinking about it carefully. I ventured into thinking it was like a quick stop way to become successful in life, only to realize success is never guaranteed anytime. Nothing is guaranteed in life, to be actually fair. So after engineering, I realized this is something I cannot pursue. Forget wanting to pursue, I cannot because I don't think I'm going to be very good at it because
Mm.
I struggle with, and plus my foundation was automobile engineering, and I wasn't really passionate about cars, right? Even when I
Okay.
bought my, even when I bought my new car recently, my question to the guy was, does it have four doors and does the windows work automatically? Yeah, I think it's a good buy. Right? Does it go fast? Yes, sir, very fast. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you. So, yeah. So you want to know about the BHP? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so after that, so I did use the like what people now talk about in the media, the nepotism bug. Having a dad who is in the industry, still on like what now,
Hmm.
40 years he's completed in the industry. So and he's still acting, right? So he still has that name, he still has that pull. And of course I would say using that umbrella of protection that comes with a father in the industry, I got that chance. And yes, I have to be fair, yes, I probably would did get my break faster than most people do, because most writers, especially the successful ones out there, know that you really never taste success as a screenplay writer in Malayalam for at least 6 to 7 years. And here's me in 8 months, I got that project, right?
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah,
so
you did a film in 2016, I know, which is insane. So wait, is this the precursor to your career now?
Uh, yeah, because that was the first jump, right? Where I thought, okay, I'm going to write a screenplay. But most people actually put the time, they actually go to college and learn how to
Yeah.
write a screenplay and churn it out. But my dad was very clear. He's like, you're all going to be the children of the internet. There's just so much you can learn online right now. Take a course or like, go and that time he knew about those companies that had started out like Coursera, Udemy.
Hmm.
Go, there must be a script writing course somewhere. Just go learn it, put in 6 months. If it costs money, here's my card, go buy it. And then I realized if we have the basic skill set to at least imbibe knowledge from written context, why can't I do the same? So I went
Right.
and downloaded the three like biggest screenplays, very complex, sufferable screenplays. The first one was The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola's.
Okay.
Okay. James Cameron's Titanic.
Okay.
Okay, because that's a landmark movie, right? It's a very
Yeah.
simple story, and he told it so magnificently. So that's obviously some screenplay magic, which was a good reference point. And to be really imaginative, I actually went and downloaded Guy Ritchie's RocknRolla, which is also
Okay.
one of my favorite films. Okay, and that was one of the biggest sleeper hits in England at that time. And again, landmark film like that changes the course of film. All these three films have changed the trajectory of how films were made after a point. So I downloaded these three screenplays, and let me tell you, James Cameron, his Titanic, that it just took me a month to read that, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
it was so exhaustive that when I was reading it, I actually started getting cold feet. Okay.
Okay.
And my dad actually had given me the offer saying, you've written a story that's acceptable. We have got producers. Now, should we just like, would you want to swallow your pride? Should we contract a screenplay writer who's seasoned
Mm.
and can do it? I said, I'll do it in English. Of course, we have to get a translator to
Of course,
translate it.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to try. Give me some time. He's like, time is scarce. Time is money in the industry. I can give you 3 months. Go for it. So in that 3 months, I lost a month just reading Titanic. And then when
Wow.
time was winding down, I started running through it. And when I felt I got the grip, I started writing my screenplay. And I think in 21 days, I churned it out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was, I'll be honest, that was nonsense. Okay. That's not how you write a screenplay. I could see that glint of disappointment in my dad's eyes, but he's like, you still have another month, try again. And this time with a clearer head, without get and every writer at some point did struggle with this, which is they get ahead of themselves when they're in the
Yeah.
writing process. Another, I can say, another suffer tortured writer,
Yeah.
tortured writer in the
We
background.
all
Yeah.
go through this.
Yeah. So having been there, and then finally we churned that story on the screenplay, got passed, and we made this film. And of course, I would say that I did have like maybe a selfish angle to the film, where I wanted to write something that was a little artsy, a very artistic attempt at screenplay writing, some a drama basically. I wanted emotions to weigh above the story, where the story
Right.
can be very simple, but I wanted that feel to come out. So yes, we got some really great actors. We got National Award winner Suraj Venyaramud. We had like Manoj KJ. We got all these big names. We had Bhavna to helmet. Of course, we did also approach other people, and a lot of people were a little apprehensive of working with a first-time screenplay writer. Fair enough, no arguments, because they were all very supportive, saying, show us what you got, and in the future we'll definitely collaborate with you again, which I guess was actually a wrong angle to go for, because I don't think they're going to pick up the call after that. But then the film came out, and having that agenda to write a film for awards, then do not go chase financial success. I, like Miley Cyrus, wanted the best of both worlds. At that point, I wanted to write something that could give me like recognition as a writer, but I also wanted something that could be very commercially successful. Sorry, those two don't often come hand in hand. They do. Those success stories are there. They exist every day, and especially this new movie which has come out. I think you've heard of it. It's called Romancham. That's just like a okay. It's
Mm.
a new film that, again, like my film, these sleeper budget films under 3 crores that are being made. Romancham has, I think, crossed 100, and it's still climbing. It's going, okay. So there are success stories, but mine was not going to be one of those, right? And the film didn't do very exceptionally well. It kind of, like, you could say, tanked at the box
Yeah.
office. So then it becomes a race against time, right? Now, okay, now am I going to be a writer that slips into obscurity because of failed project, or am I going to like dust myself off and move again?
Yeah.
And I think Kuriakos also could have attested to that. Films are unforgiving, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to give you that second break that quickly. And my dad also told me, why don't you just take a breather, right? I think you have to like now think about things and like what's going to happen. So you realize, right? Engineering not happening. First film has completely like it's not happening. The films look, it doesn't look like the films are happening either. Now
Yeah.
where does it go from here, right?
Yeah.
So
Also,
in
just to quickly like stop you and to give context to our listeners, Kuryakos was a guest previously on this season. So you can go listen to that episode as well. Yeah.
mm, backstory, Kuryakos and me have known each other for 10 years. We're neighbors. He lives 2 floors above my house. But yeah,
A small world indeed.
yeah, just try to capitalize on Kuryakos' fame. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, where are we going to go from there? And I was happy. I was lucky enough that there was a small time advertising firm in Kochi called the Links India. And again, very grateful to Shivakant Menon, who is currently, I think, leading marketing for Da Mensch, which is a men's branding apparel brand. He was my head of content in this small advertising firm. And I was lucky because, as one of the only few burgeoning firms in the city, we got some great projects. And I was like flung into the world of copywriting from day one, right? Because
Hmm.
as a company that's short staffed, coming on board as a junior copywriter actually meant a lot more responsibility than just being a guy who sat in the bylines and just observed. No, you're going to hit the ground running day two onwards, like learn how to write. So I'm like, what do you mean learn how to write? I know how to write. Yeah, you know how to write a story. Good for you. We saw your film. Congratulations. But yeah, but copywriting is a different ball game, my son. Like try again. Okay.
Yeah.
And my attitude was quite skewed. Maybe I was going in with that, "Ah, I think I know what I'm doing. I'm a writer. I've made a film. I think I can do this." And whenever he'd ask me for a copy line brief, I would just write one brief, one line, and be like, this is the answer. And he'd be like, when I give you a brief, I expect 50 taglines, and we choose, not you. Okay. So again, that's when you learn, okay, so now I have to put some effort. And then over a few months, I was sharpening that skill. I started learning. But I'll be very honest, and this is where again there's a quick, it's pivoting really fast. Like my career is now flying like a jet, right? I'm just 6 months to an advertising firm. I got to work with great clients like Amazon. I was working with Mahindra Comviva. I was working with Logitech. I was working with Ibis Hotels. We did a great campaign for the Pullman New Delhi Aerocity Hotel. So of course, I was loving this work where you could be really creative with your words, right? You could also mix in regional language subtleties into it, and you could really have fun with content. But I think on some level, because of disciplined writing from a young age, probably because of Janet Roy. So, wherever you are, ma'am, I hope you're listening.
Janet ma'am. I actually
Yeah.
met her a few months ago, just by the way.
Oh my God, how is she?
She's great. I met her at a school reunion. So yeah.
But yeah, so oh, where was I think I lost my trail. Yeah, so having worked, and I got to, I think because of that disciplined structured writing, my creative director that time, Zach, and Zach was very honest with me. He's like, yeah, you're working with some great brands, but the real brands that you're succeeding with happen to be Logitech, because you were able to understand a little bit of the technical concepts that the other non-technical writers were like struggling to grasp, and you
Hmm.
were just very cleanly writing copy because you knew what that keyboard did. You knew why a mechanical keyboard works better than a normal keyboard. You got the point. So maybe, like technology is something you want to explore, right?
Yeah.
But around that time, I had actually, on the side, as a side gig, I started freelancing, and I did not freelance ad copy. I was
Okay.
freelancing blog content, and a lot of blog content that was facing a talent crunch in the market at that time was B2B technical content, right? Not
Okay.
technical writing, just technical content from a B2B perspective. And writing about, in 2016, future tech at that time was IoT and cloud, right?
Right. Yeah.
So thinking about that, nobody was out there in the market, and especially they wanted someone for the cheap tier two city pay in Kochi city, right? So they were struggling to find a writer, and I was able to get these short term projects, and that started really kicking off. Where at one point, my income from the freelancing was overshooting my salary from the
Oh wow.
advertising company. And in just 8 months, I took that sudden decision to like just step away from advertising and pursue B2B writing, right?
Right.
And I stopped freelance, and the worst part is I immediately stopped freelancing, having said to myself, it's really difficult to chase an invoice, okay? I'll be very honest, and I didn't think that was for me. So I thought, okay, maybe I should find a job in B2B technical writing. Now, who hires a B2B technical writer? And in 2016 there was not a lot of clarity. 2017, 18 actually, 18 end towards 19, now we're beginning, there was not a lot of clarity, right,
Right.
as to who was going to employ me. But I got to see a lot of content writer roles. Now
Okay.
these content writer roles kind of like stretched across an entire spectrum, right from like head out that was hiring travel writers, travel loggers,
Yeah.
all the way to like maybe a Cisco that required people for documentation. And that delves deeper into technical documentation. They're not looking for creative writing. Okay. So in that middle somewhere were these companies are like B2B consultancies that were struggling to find writers. And Trescon was the first organization, and I'm happy to mention this company's name here, because when I joined Trescom, it was a very a very small organization with I think about like 80 people, right? And I was one of those first few guys, and because I've entered in as a writer, and before when they were struggling having no writers at all on board, they gave me a lot of power from the get go. And in fact, I was hired as a content writer, but in like 6 months, they just like overturned that and said, "Content manager, just lead this, okay?
Ah.
Because we don't want to risk you getting an offer for just like a slightly higher pay and going. Stick around, stay around, right? I think we need you for some time, at least if not for the long run, we need you right now." And
Yeah.
with Stresscon, I explored the world of B2B writing. I was into IoT, cloud, blockchain. Blockchain at that time was
Was it huge? Yeah.
it just became a buzzword around that time, and this company was heavily focused on blockchain. They conduct this very famous event called the World Blockchain Summit all around the world.
Mm.
And having explored blockchain from the nuances where even the thought leaders in the industry are pretty much on the same level as you, they're also still learning the tech, and you're learning with them. And I got to
Yeah.
converse with some great leaders in the field of crypto and blockchain, right? I got to my the favorite person I think that I met, and it was a real privilege to meet that person, would definitely have to be Ivan Luthra, right?
Okay.
Because Ivan Luthra, even though people would, there'll be a lot of naysayers out there, this man has been a pivotal moment in the crypto world. And being very blunt, you get to learn a lot of things from a person, right? A person who
Mm.
just calls a spade, right? Not a
Yeah.
person who calls a club a really black, beautiful flower, right? It's a club, my friend, and the Irish know about it, okay? But so Trescon was good for 1.5 years, and then now after that, it's just been me running with that, right? I was a B2B content writer for a couple of years. I shifted a lot of organizations. I got to jump into companies that delved into AI, telecom, health tech, HR tech. I was heavily focused on future tech. That was
Yeah.
my crux. But that's when I stumbled upon the next stage of where this was going to take me, right? Which was product marketing content.
Okay.
Yeah, what was this gap? What is product marketing content? That is still a debate that's happening in the, in the gullies and alleys. Like, what is it? Who's writing this content, right? When you see a brochure and a white paper, who's supposed to write this? Is it
Yeah.
going to be the manager, or is it going to be the product marketing content writer? That's people like us who step on board. But can they entrust us completely? Do we understand the tech well enough to write about it on such a, a macro level, right?
Hmm.
And exploring that for 1.5 years was great because I got to work with a great product marketing manager called Hema. She's an ex Zoho Freshworks alumni who worked in this conversational AI company I was at called Enterprise Bot. And Hema, in that 1.5 years, drilled everything she could into me ruthlessly. Was not going to look at the fact that I was coming in with about 3.5, 4 years of experience. She's like, even I'm only at 7. I don't care. Either you learn or just get out. Okay.
Yeah.
And it came to a point where I would say today we're great friends. We're actually good friends. We meet up now like as friends for a drink out there in Bangalore. Of course, now she's in Montreal enjoying the snow. But yeah, so that's very important because these managers who will come through your life, through your career, a lot of them will rely on you. A lot of them might put you down and say you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of them will just keep pushing you to the edge saying, come on man, you can. If not you, then who else? Why not you? Why can't it be you? Why can't you be the person who learns, right? Forget the guy who's come out with his MBA degree. He might not be a great writer, he might be a better marketer. So why
Yeah.
don't you work in tandem with him and make something beautiful, right? And that's where product marketing content started to like thrive for me. I understood that skill set gap, and that's
Hmm.
what's important for every writer out there that's listening to us. Being a writer is great. Being a great writer cements your value, but you
Yeah.
have to find a skill set gap, at least from an organizational perspective.
Oh
If
yeah,
you're a
100%.
freelancer, good for you. You can have a thriving career as a freelancer. But if you want to work in an enterprise, you have to find that skill set gap, and you need to be that skill set that plugs the gap.
True.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I got really episodic. No, I think I got very emotional. It's been like
No, but I think you finally found like that niche for yourself, right? That space for yourself to kind of be like, okay, this is what I'm good at and what I can do. And, this is what I'm going to sort of continue doing, at least as of now.
half enough. I'd say yes, I found this niche. It's great. Now, what am I good at it? Let's take some time. I'll get back to you in a year or two, and I'll give you a solid answer at that point. But I'd say I'm thriving. I'm
Yeah.
surviving. Now it's
Hmm.
about excellence. Let's strive for
Right.
that. So
Okay. No, but no, but that is really cool that you've managed to find a space for yourself. And I would imagine it is a space you also enjoy being in some sense.
uh, it's funny that you asked that, right? Because I'm sure even you get this a lot. What is it that you do actually? The usual question when you're
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me and I say I'm in publishing, the immediate response is, "Oh, so you're an editor?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "I do editorial work as on as freelance jobs and whatever, but I'm actually in the rights and business development side of it, which is actually something I do enjoy doing and which I actively pursued and seeked out, and I'm grateful that I got that position." But yeah, somehow people just don't think that creative industries have a business side, and we do finance and we actually do marketing and sales and distribution. Somehow people just don't think of those things when they think of books. But yeah,
they always want to like drum your career down into a very linear thought process.
I know,
Is
right?
what is it that you do, Nikhil? So I'd start off with like, yeah, so basically all the content that you see from a C-level perspective, which is your white papers, brochures, and immediately they cut you off with by saying, oh, so you're a content writer. Not really. One second. Do you have a pen and a paper? Like, I chart this out for you,
I
man. Like,
know.
yeah. And then after I chart it out for them, oh, like social media, get out, man. Just get out. Like,
Yeah,
don't talk to me.
this is literally. So what does rights mean? I'm like, oh, like licensing permissions, and they're like, oh, okay. Don't really get it, but sounds cool. And I'm like, okay, cool, sure, whatever.
So yeah, that I think that's the only thing right now where I struggle with, where I really can't explain the entire scope of my work to a person. And I could probably explain it to a person if they were sitting down with me for like 10-15 minutes, but in a passing conversation,
Yeah.
somebody just asked me like, hey, what do you do? I say I just do something that's really boring that nobody else wants to do. Okay. It is very true actually in my career. Actually, a lot of people would thrive in this space, but it can get a little mundane. It can get a little repetitive, which, that really chokes a writer. Like, why am I doing the same thing again and again, right? It just can't be the paycheck that motivates you after day.
Hmm.
Fortunately, that's wrong. Even a paycheck can motivate you because it kind of validates what you're doing day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
If you're being paid for your skills, that means your skills have value. It holds value in the global economic machine. So be proud of what you do, and
Oh, yeah.
don't let the relatives rain on your parade. You know?
Yeah. No,
So,
but no, no. Obviously, I mean, that is one part of it. Obviously, you face all these like misconceptions and assumptions about, your job and what you do. And I think every person who works in some form of creative career or even other careers for that matter do face some amount of assumption at some point, because it's like you said, people just want to kind of dumb it down or just bring it to the bare basics of it and be like, okay, so this is it, this is what you do, end of story. So it's easier for them to kind of comprehend what you're doing. But no, like, but the thing is, what I'm asking is like, do you enjoy what you're doing, or is it something you're just purely doing for the sake of it now? Then is what I'm trying to understand.
no, that would be unfair, because if I was actually chasing the paycheck, I would have actually moved into a different role by now. I am not. I am actually seeking excellence in the sense that I want to reach a point where if anybody and anywhere at any point is looking for this skill set, they should be like that Nikhil guy, that really tall dude who can't hide behind trees. He's taller than the tree. Yeah, get that dude, get that dude. I want at least them to remember me in that passing thought, because I was so good at my job that you respect me enough for me to cross your conversations. And that's what actually is my career right now. Moving jobs now, I don't actively actually look for jobs. It's always an opportunity that comes from an ex-colleague who has probably moved on to another organization, and if they see that skill set gap, they reach out to me saying, hey Nikhil, I think you can fill this role here, right?
Mm.
And I've actually moved through organizations like that. Of course, Accelerator, my current company, is a classic success story in the power of a cold email. So I had resigned from my job unceremoniously, of like after just 45 days there, because I didn't appreciate the culture that was going on there in that organization. And I didn't care whether I had another job in hand. I'm like, I'll see that as it comes, but right now I need to leave. I need to like focus on myself for a moment, right? Because these guys were like on my head. And then I just, after I took a week off, like two at least about 10 days, I just took to like let that burnout just like leave my system. I
Yeah,
just fired a cold email to this HR. I found him on LinkedIn, and within 3 days, I was on the job. Like the offer letter came in 48 hours, and there we were
that's
there.
amazing.
Yeah, so that's why I tell people: do not give up on cold emails, man.
I
Keep sending
agree.
them. Yeah,
Because all my opportunities in publishing came through cold emails, just FYI. So it's actually great. Just it's fine, because there's so many people who come up to me now and ask me, they're like, oh, how did you, break in? What did you do? And I'm just like, listen, just keep, throwing things at the wall till something sticks. Like, forget, this whole thing of, oh, I've been rejected. And you can't take rejection so personally, also. That's what I keep telling people. You have to be a bit detached and just keep trying.
absolutely. That's actually the spot on attitude you should have, especially in a field where sometimes careers might not be just black and white. There's obviously a
Exactly.
so you have to be resilient. You have to know there's going to be a lot of times where you're like lost. You just don't know where you're going with this. Is this a sustainable career? Am I going to crash and burn in the next 5 years? Is Chat GPT going to take my job away?
Yeah.
All these like looming questions. It's fine if you're confident in what you do. You can upskill yourself. You can beat the AI. Do not get that. Like AI is not like Skynet from the Terminator yet. Maybe it'll get there, you know but it's not sentient enough to beat human cognitive thinking, right? So be like, just have faith in yourself, and you can do something out there. Even today, I'm not going to say that no, we are aloof, we are not going to use Chat GPT 100%. Chat GPT is a good aid, a good tool. It speeds up, it streamlines a lot of content processes that can, like, now we are much more streamlined, right? And using Chat GPT to drive content, we have been able to shoot ballpark figures for our content volumes and metrics, right? We have gone into the millions of viewers into our websites now, and that's great. This is the first time I'm in an organization where we are at 1 million views 2 million views for our website traffic, and that I've never been in an organization that has seen those kind of sky high rocket numbers, right? So it's, unless like if you work in a Google or an Oracle, maybe, but for a startup and that's scaling, so, and it's great, especially in the startup space. You get to either be a part of a success story, or you get to be an intricate cog in a failure. Depends on where it goes, north or south, but it doesn't matter. Just like go with that, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in an organization that, like, something told me it wasn't going right, and the minute I left, within 4 months, the company belly upped, right?
Oh, wow.
So I always trust my gut instinct, because like, Mukesh hasn't let me down. Yes, I call my gut instinct Mukesh, because I had an old friend called Mukesh who always used to give me good advice. So I'm like, you are now my new Mukesh.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
So
I feel terrible for Mukesh, but okay.
Mukesh is doing amazing in Sweden. Just FYI. This
Yeah.
Mukesh, not so much.
Oh my God. I feel bad for both Mukeshes at this point. But anyway, no, but it's interesting you brought up ChatGPT and AI because no, honestly, like what is your take on it? I mean, I know you're like, okay, it's not going to replace anyone at any point, but just I think the way people are viewing it also, it's really because some people are like, oh yeah, like AI will never be able to replace humans at all for anything ever. And then some people are just like panicking and are like, oh my God, my job is gone. So just generally, like, what is your take with where AI and is going in terms of like writing and copywriting and stuff?
That's actually it's a great thing that you brought that up, because I actually have a great opinion piece on Thrive Global, which I'll share with you later, which is basically about the advent of technology. And people from like, I think the 19th century onwards have always been apprehensive to technological advancements. It started with, I think, Gutenberg's printing press. I think in
Ah,
1838 or 1898. I'm not very good with dates. I'm sorry. Sorry, people. You can Google it and get the right date. But ever since Gutenberg came out with this printing press, people are like, oh no, the artisans are going to lose their jobs. The guys who would manually like copy these manuscripts, right? What's going to happen to them? Well, it was very simple. You give each of them a printing press, and they churn out 30 books a day, not one book in 2 days, right? The printing press was just going to be a tool to increase volume output. It wasn't going to replace the artisan, because you always want one human at the helm of affairs when technology comes into the picture. It's always good to have that synergy between human and machine, because I don't want to bring up Terminator again. Okay, let's not yeah, I'll be back. But having said that, from that point, technology has always been like, people have been apprehensive. But as the technology found its firm footing in like human working and culture, people over time would start to embrace it. Today,
hmm.
there is no world without a printing press. Though now we are moving into the digital age, where printing press on a whole itself is being threatened as a business, because you've seen that newspapers have seismically reduced their volumetric output in terms of hard physical copies of
Yeah.
newspapers and magazines and all of that. So I think with the changing times, sure, I would say some jobs will get eliminated, but I don't think technology is going to be at the core of why jobs are destroyed and new jobs by a result are created. It's
Yeah.
always going to be where the human race is proceeding towards, right? And if it comes to a point like where a technology like chat gpt can be so intelligent that it's gone into the meta learning stage of its entire life cycle, and I'll come to what that meta learning cycle is in a bit. But if it's so smart that it can do everybody's job, like from the content writer all the way to the back end developer and the senior engineers, and nobody has a job anymore, then we come into this conversation that started as early as 2006, which is the UBI, or the universal basic income. But
Okay.
UBI gives rise to a conversation which would create this kind of a dystopian utopia that makes no sense, where people are just living for the sake of living. Like you've seen that movie Wally, right? Those people living in
Yeah.
that space. It
Yeah.
just something like that. And humans are very bad when they're complacent. Complacency has always been evil in human mind. Idle man's mind, devil's workshop, right? That's the same. So I would say that no, I would not want to believe that a highly intelligent tech like Chat GPT is going to replace jobs. It's going to be a very like a steroid infused tool that we're going to employ to only increase and drum up volume. If it becomes really smart and like, I don't know, it runs for the 2029 presidential election, I don't know, maybe then that's a conversation we'll have another day. But you know, but so yeah, answering that question, Let's see it. We don't know what's going to happen in the next, let's say, 10 years, right? An asteroid's going to fly through the Earth. The dinosaurs are going to come back to life. They'll find a 50-foot snake frozen in the tundra that becomes the ruler overlord. Who knows? Like, everything is subjective now. There are people who believe in lizard people in the sewers. So I don't know. Anything you can believe anything you want today. Choose your god, worship it. Choose your religion, worship it. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But coming back to what content and of what technology will always mean, it's only going to be an aid. Be happy that they invented anesthesia. Otherwise, they're going to be cutting you open while you were alive. I mean, like
Oh
when
my
you're
God.
awake. Yeah. So it's because of invention that life is only going to become better, right? Medical sciences, and I've worked for a little bit in the health tech startup, and writing about health tech, it blew my mind, right? Especially what they're doing with Casper and CRISPR-9 and all these like gene splicing tech out there. Like, we are going to reach a point where, yes, we're going to have nanobots inside our bodies. We are going to be able to, like, remove and replace organs like they were air filters in your engine, right? It's going to become probably that linear. And when you're in that era of human mankind, then what is all this chat gpt, that those conversations become moot, because we have now ushered in the next era of life, that all of this is no longer relative. So in 3 years the conversation is going to change. You're going to ask me a very different question. Chat
Yeah.
gpt is just another integrated tool like Freshworks, Zoho, Bing, Grammarly almost emerged as the first threat to
Yeah.
writers, right? So, and but right now, you and me know, as writers, we rely on Grammarly. We have deadlines that we can't meet, and we don't have the time to like oversee every line of like a 1,000-word article. Thank you, Grammarly, right?
Yeah.
So, you made my life easier, and it's great. So yeah, I think that is a very broad, like a very extrapolated answer to your question. I think you've realized, Sagita, I don't give direct answers. I like to like go around and round and come
Yeah,
around.
that has been forever. But anyway, that's why you're on a podcast. This is just more content for me and all of us to listen to.
Interesting story. My sufferable way of answering questions always used to drive Pamela ma'am insane.
Oh my God. We're just giving shout outs to all our school teachers at this point.
Yeah, and I think I'm very conveniently bringing up the favorites, but okay.
Oh my God. But no, but it's really interesting to hear your take on that because this has been an ongoing conversation now, at least for the past couple of months, especially because people are like, oh my God, like, will we not require copywriters anymore? In fact, there are like even writers who are like, oh, like, will AI now just come in and write books and will humans not, write anything at all? And I'm just like, I think it's a bit far fetched to immediately. I mean, I think it's a great tool to use for ideas maybe, but think you still need that some amount of human touch, and I don't think AI can do that yet. The day it does, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, but also kind of.
I actually truly believe the tech hasn't reached that point where it can at least okay, forget technical content that we all write. Maybe that ours will be the first jobs that it displaces, fine, or maybe it becomes a very important tool. It's not going to like take over a quintessential like a fictional writer's job ever, right? Because recently, I think somebody on LinkedIn, a famous thought leader, he put ChatGPT 4 to the test, right? And he asked full-fledged novella. Now the
Yeah, yeah,
prompts,
yeah.
yeah, and the novella came out, and just reading that short story, which I think about 3,000 words, I could tell you off the bat three stories it ripped off, starting with Ex Machina. Okay. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah, AI falling in love. Thank you. I did not see this movie in 2011. Okay. There. And it took a little bit of the remnants of a Salvation, Terminator's film, as usual. And it copied a couple of the elements of Isaac Asimov's mutilation of his algorithm, which is explained in iRobot, Will Smith's film. Right?
Oh,
ChatGPT still relies on existent content to create its own. So that kind of like strings that thin line on plagiarism on some level.
yeah.
Right?
True, true.
How can it like take over a writer's job where a crazy guy like Stephen King can just sit down in his like his like in his backyard in Germany somewhere, wherever he lives right now, and he thinks these fantastical stories like Carrie, and like how can it like substitute H.P. Lovecraft's greatest novel like The Call of Cthulhu and all these great books, right? And I don't think AI will ever be able to think like the human mind, because the human mind does not think linearly. It's boundless. We have 1 million brain cells, so many neurons firing in different directions, that suddenly a story can do a 180 and go in the other direction, which AI will not want to do. AI will want to follow a logical approach to starting a story, giving you a middle, and then finishing it with a climax, wrapping it up all into one pretty bow and presenting it to you, right? That's not what a great author does. A great author wants you to just like turn each page going like, what the hell? Like he wants you to think like that. So I don't think so. I don't think a writer's job, especially a quintessential writer's job, is going to be fulfilled through AI. Maybe the run of the mill jobs, yes. I don't think a copywriter's job also is going to be taken over
Yeah,
by.
even I don't think so, honestly
So
speaking.
at least where the tech is right now, right?
Yeah.
People bash me for this, right? They're saying you're being a naysayer, but I keep saying like I can be the doomsday soothsayer if you want me to, right? I can say that yes, we are going into the Skynet level, because I think it's a matter of time before the military starts entrusting AI, and I think we all know where that goes, right? So, but oh, man, yeah. I don't know. There's no definitive answer, but I don't think so. I don't think we're there yet. Let's see.
Mm.
Let's talk about this in like,
In 10 years, yeah, if we have jobs, no, I think we will. But yeah.
alive. Let's start with that, with the pollution and the quality of food out there. Alive. Let's start with the basics.
Oh my God. Wow. So optimistic. I feel like people are going to listen to this and be like, wow, what a great future we all have in store.
Yeah, like what happened to this dude? Like who hurt this guy? Like,
Oh my God. So, okay, also to kind of pivot, I know you've ghostwritten articles as well. That's something you've done. So what is your take on ghostwriting? Because I feel like that's again something there's a lot of debate on, just in terms of, oh, is, and sometimes there's even like a negative connotation associated with it, like, oh, is it ethical? Is it, you know, is it really fair? And there are a lot of things. So like, what is your perspective on ghostwriting?
yeah, so that I think that's a two-pronged approach to looking at it from the ethics perspective. Like, yeah, so most of ghostwriting does exist for the thought leadership space, and the seesaw moment is like, yes, when you're reading content from the thought leadership perspective, you want to hear from the thought leader. You want to hear what he says. You don't want to hear what the ghostwriter has to say. But the ghostwriter is just merely a person that's been contracted to do the heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
The when I used when I've ghostwritten about 3 articles before I stopped, and all three, the people who I was writing it for, they gave me a detailed brief of what they wanted to say. So yes, the wording and the tone, it's definitely Nikhil Menon. If you read that, sure, agree, because I can only write from how I think, but the words that I'm saying and the perspective I'm putting across, that's theirs, because that is set in guidelines and their brief, and I cannot stray from
Hmm.
there. So there, I think it's more of like, again, a paid contractual aid, right?
Right.
But now, when you go into ghostwriting for personal work, and let's say, I think one thing that has always plagued the industry from I think the 90s has been the music industry. And a lot of artists have been like, fingers have been pointed at artists saying this person used a ghostwriter to write this song. And so it's
Yeah.
technically not him. So, all this time I always felt like, this artist was speaking from his heart. No, it was somebody else's issues that this guy was just emulating in a recording studio for you, right? And then you
Right.
kind of want to detach and dissociate yourself, but again, that's something else altogether. But I really think that ghostwriting should not be looked at from an ethics perspective, because a CEO will not have the time to sit and churn out 1,000-word article, or if he does find the time, expect to get it in like a year. Okay, that's the amount of time he can dedicate for this, right? Because if you see CEO calendars, forget the CEO, just go 4 levels above where we stay, the directors, their calendars are chalk blocked for the entire week. I have squeezed in 4 minutes and all in between in a day to just get in a word with my VP, right? Because they're booked. Not only are they doing their vertical work, but they are a part of important like fundraising discussions, go to market strategy. They're all over the place. And then
Yeah.
in that chaos, you want them to write an article, a blog for you. Sorry, that's like the lowest rung in their ladder. They're not going to
Yeah.
come to it that soon. So at that point, you rely on someone, right, to actually do the heavy lifting, and that's your ghostwriter. He's going to come in, and if he's an established writer, he's probably going to do a good job. And some thought leaders are not good with putting their thoughts into words. They can give you like rough bullet points, but they're not writers. They were not trained to be very exhaustive with the way they write something. If they had to write the blog, they'll write it in 4 lines and give it to you. Like, that's it. That's all I had to say. We tend to get very flowery with the language, and we can just drone on for like 1,000, 2,000 words, right? Do more research and beef it up. So no, that's not an ethic. I don't think it's an ethics game. But
Hmm.
I think from a career standpoint, there is one negative connotation that comes with ghostwriting, as in I would not suggest you start off with ghostwriting early on in your career,
Yeah.
because an ethical ghostwriter will never share the content that he has written for someone. So you will not have much of a portfolio to show anyone.
Yeah.
It'll become a conversation where you will have to tell that person, just trust me, I wrote that. I can't show you, but I wrote it. You know, and that's moot. Nobody's no sorry, that doesn't exist in today's world. Seeing is believing, right? In any aspect. So yeah, from a career perspective, think about it through. I also did ghostwriting, I think maybe like 2.5 years into my career, where it just became a monetary perspective, right?
Right.
It's good money. Okay. I was not even a seasoned writer, so I regret it these days that I actually did not charge enough, because at that time, what I thought was I was quoting a very heavy price. I'm like, I don't think they're going to pay me this amount, right? And they ended up just paying those amounts like it was just a pebble in the beach, like it's nothing for them. And now, when I actually learned how much ghostwriters were making then and are making now, my God, I want to go and rewrite that invoice, man. But yeah, but so that I think that's very important. Get your portfolio. To every writer out there, have a portfolio, have something to show, right? You have
Yeah,
to be able
yeah,
to
yeah.
prove your skills, right? Don't expect people to trust you. Nobody's going to trust you. We have come to an era where we can't even trust family, right? So why am I going to trust you, man? So or girl or everything else.
Yeah. True. So then, okay, at this juncture in your career, do you think you'll ever go back to film? Is that something you think you'll ever do?
That question makes me want to cry.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Oh my God.
Because it's something I think I face every day, because that is the glorified version of being a writer. Like, you can be there, you can become famous, you can make money, you can like rub shoulders with stars. I would say that most of the time when people ask me about, like, are you ever going to go back to films and become a screenplay writer, some of them, at least most of them, are asking me that question from that perspective. They want to know, why aren't you going back to that field? You have a father who can help you climb faster again, and now that you have established yourself as a writer on the corporate side, people will take you more seriously, so maybe you should try again. But I'm like, can you not hear your own question? I have established myself somewhere else, right? It's going to take a lot of guts for me to put everything of that's going on right now on the back burner and on hold, and now dive back into films. And that's where I'm standing at, right? I'm not it's I can't even say I'm at that juncture of the crossroad. There was a juncture, and I've teetered off into the other direction, where I can still see the other road, but unfortunately now it's slightly sneaking away from each other.
No, but I think that, no, what I'm asking is
So what I'm
more.
saying is, it involves a massive U-turn, just getting back to the junction and going again. Because trust me, balancing a corporate writing career with writing a screenplay, not gonna happen. Maximum, I'll have to take a sabbatical and like
Yeah.
sit away from work for 3, 4 months to churn out a screenplay. Because I've been struggling with that for the last 1 year. FYI. This is something I don't tell people. I've just been doing it on my own. I've been trying to actually make that comeback. But trust me, I wish I can show you my Google Cloud. There are at least 12 scripts left halfway, because I either get detached from the story, I no longer believe in the story midway that I'm writing, I lose confidence in the character, the plot, or sometimes I'm just lost. I don't know where I'm going with something. I don't have the time to finish it. The recent one is the victim of that. I don't have the time to visit it again, and eventually I'm going to lose stock of what I was writing, and that story is going to be gone forever. That's obviously going to be a fear, because when you're concocting stories from the top of your head, don't live in the belief that it's going to stay there forever, because your mind is
Yeah.
constantly firing. You'll forget that story in a heartbeat. So I don't know, man, Sangita. I wish I had a straight answer again for you, but unfortunately it is something that I wrestle with. And yeah, sorry. Like, no,
No, but I mean, no, because obviously, see, it has remained. See, if you don't want to go back to it, that's fine. That's like your personal decision. But is it something you feel like you definitely want to try again, if not anything else?
no, actually, it's not that I don't want to go back to it again, but I don't know. Like, either it's maybe it's a lack of confidence because I got burnt the first time I went
Yeah,
around, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I told you the critics were so brutal with me, Sangeeta, right?
yeah,
They didn't even bother to give that consideration. They just went for it. They're like
yeah.
newcomer writer, very evident. So many mistakes. We can see it right there. Okay, definitely has some chops, but needs to learn some more. And that's what I took from that. Needs to learn some more. So I still need to learn a little bit more. I have to make my stories a little bit more human. I don't know,
Mm,
something that's relatable to the current generation. I know maybe I can't write stories that would have worked in 2005. I need to now
mm,
think we're at 23 and I need to write more fast-paced
mm,
content. I don't know. I still haven't figured the kinks out, but I am looking at that content always. I'm always thinking about it. It's I use a saying that I don't think I should say, but I call films for me that unforgiving mistress. But
okay.
it's there. It's something that I love and I'm passionate about. But unfortunately, I'm married to the current career, right? you know,
Okay.
you know.
That's hilarious. Okay then. Yeah, anyway. So, okay, again, sort of shifting gears, I want to ask you about, artists, writers, and just content that's kind of stuck with you throughout the years. Especially, I think when you are a creative, or actually, you don't even need to be a creative person for this. I feel like anyone, while growing up itself, I feel like there'll always be some piece of art or content that kind of sticks with you or influences you or impacts you in a certain way. I know for me, one book that's always kind of stuck with me, especially as a kid and even now, is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. That's one book that I don't know, I just keep going back to. And that story is something I just keep going back to. Interestingly, I have to mention another thing. There was a book that you gifted me for my 11th or 12th birthday. I don't know if you remember this. I don't think it was your idea. I think it was like your mother or sister's idea. It's called The Broken Flute by Sharada Dwivedi,
Oh,
which is
that's my
another
dad.
book.
Had to
Huh?
be my dad. It had to be my
Okay.
dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved that book. That was again another book that really stuck with me. So, what are the kinds of, content that's stuck with you? Again, can be books, films, TV shows, music, anything.
Oh, okay. Oh, you just made that question so damn tough. Okay, you opened up too many like
I
avenues
know.
as to what
No,
could
but
possibly.
like just, because the reason I ask this is because sometimes there are like certain, writers or stories that really like hit you and you're like, oh my God, this is just going to stick with me for a really long time. Or then you kind of realize that these are the kind of stories that do stick with me and that I do resonate with. So that's why I usually ask this question.
Beautiful question. That's lovely. Okay, well, I think from the get go, let's approach each of these roles one by one. Okay, in terms of literature, right? Yeah, I'm sure there's so many greats that we can talk about, but I think the book that I can say unabashedly is something that always sticks with me is going to be every single thing that's written by H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King. I've
Okay.
always been a horror fanatic, and even in the film category, horror is my go-to genre. I think I've seen maybe over 800 horror films from all languages. I span across. I
Wow.
see Finnish, Polish, Korean, Thai. One of my favorite directors is Rocky Soraya. Try and catch him if you can. Great
Okay.
director. But moving on from there, so Stephen King, the way he used to write these books, right? It doesn't matter whether it's believable or not from a realism perspective. He's going to give you a story that makes you think and makes you push that boundary as to what horror can be. Horror doesn't have to be an entity, it can just be that unnerving feeling of dread. That's what he said in an interview, and it just stuck with me, right? And it made me respect his books even more because Carrie is not scary as a book. Oh, that rhymes. But
Oh God. Okay.
yeah, but it's just that unnerving sense of dread throughout the book. Even Pet Cemetery, there's nothing scary about that book. There's no ghost, there's nothing that comes flying at you from the window, but you just feel very disheartened or like unnerved at the end of that book. Like, what just went down, right? And I think that's the same thing with H.P. Lovecraft because it's a very interesting story. He was another tortured writer like us. I think he started writing in the 1870s, and
Okay.
one of my favorite books of his, I think that might have been his first. I could be wrong. People can correct me, but I think it was the Necronomicon, otherwise known as the Book of the Dead, right?
Okay.
And writing about touchy subjects like that, the thing from the beyond, that story of his, which is about interdimensional travel where creatures come through a wormhole in the 1890s, nobody was going to buy that. So this guy used to just stitch these books, these hand woven bound books, put them in baskets, ironically like the Malayalam writer Vaikom Muhammad Basheer as well. This
Ah.
guy would go from doorstep to doorstep pitching his book like, hey, buy my book, right? And nobody would buy these books, and H.P. Lovecraft died in abject poverty or starvation and all of that. And it's a very disheartening story because 50 years later his books have been inducted into the literature congress, right? Like these
Hmm.
books will go down in history as a pivotal moment, but unfortunately, like Van Gogh and all these guys, they had to die in poverty because nobody saw that vision then. They were born in the wrong era, simple as that, right? And that content has always like stuck with me, and I feel like I can always go back to those kind of books. Like I think I've reread Carrie like 2 3 times but it's just like fun. It's something that you can like resonate with, especially if you were a child at some point who was bullied, and you just wished that you could like derive some power from the universe and take revenge on these people that rained hell on you day in and day out. And that's how he took a subject that could resonate with everyone, but it's horror. That was the moment. That was the
Right.
moment when he turns as an author, and that stuck with me. I love that kind of content. But when you come to TV shows, and we have been blessed in the era with great TV shows, I think nothing will hit me, haunt me, or make me feel like I don't know what's going on. Is The Sopranos. The
Hmm.
Sopranos has been one of the greatest series ever made. A great writer, David Chase, right? And one of the greatest actors of that time, James Gandolfini. And I'll tell you something. So, The Sopranos, that final episode, which is called Made in America, I rewatched that episode, I think maybe 10 times in a year or maybe even more. If I'm bored and I'm just sitting down one day, I'll watch that episode because you know why? There was room for him to tell you so much, but he walks away from the series not telling you anything at all. Spoiler alert, an emotional spoiler alert. I'm not going to tell you what the story is, but I'll tell you what you're going to feel when you walk away from that series finale. You're going to be like, why? Tell me more. I want to know. And that was the feeling he wanted to invoke in you. He wanted you to just know, oh God, it's over. It's over. That's it. And it was the greatest thing. It was a part of my life. And luckily, like people in the back in the day had to wait 6 years to watch the entire series. I was able to watch it in 2 months, right? Just watch 6 seasons, and it's long. They're really long, an hour long episodes. So it takes time, and it can sometimes be a little tough to sit through some episodes because it borders between the mafia and drama, and he has married these two very different stories. Mario Puzo tried it with the Godfather, but it always stemmed down back to what the mafia was. But that's not what the Sopranos was. The Sopranos was always ever going to be a family drama that was
Hmm.
woven around the Chicago mob that was dying out in the early 2000s. Like they were losing power. So that's a very, very interesting take. You're not going to show somebody at the height of their power. You're showing a person that's getting defeated because the system's getting stronger. Legalities were cracking down on the mafia, and that push and that pull. It was 6 seasons of a roller coaster, right? And that will never, because if I want to write something, I should aspire to be as great as that series, because you go to anybody who has watched The Sopranos, and the first thing is they're going to lean back and tell you about two episodes. One is the finale, Made in America, and the other one was called Unlimited Free Parking, where a series favorite met its end, right? So
Hmm.
it's, yeah, that's from that perspective. From TV shows, there it is. That's The Sopranos. Everybody, go watch it. You're missing out, okay? Like, go catch it if you haven't already. If you have, welcome to the club, man. So yeah, but and but from, I think, from a written perspective, as somebody who wants to fine tune their writing skill, let's just go back to the textbook basics. William Strunk Jr.,
Okay.
the elements of style. He was, I think, a professor at Yukon, Pennsylvania, or something like that. And he wrote the foundation of how writing styles changed, and that's where it gets very important. When you look at rudimentary grammar, it is archaic at best, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you why. I want to I want to believe that, no offense to what's going on with CBSC and CRT and all these guys that are like struggling with their think tanks to make the textbooks better every year, but I think that somewhere along the line of what the laws of grammar and written English was, it has been lost through this, like, year to year conversations.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you something, and I think you might remember this. It's something that even, unfortunately, even our teachers back in Lady Anhal had told us, that you never start a sentence with the word and.
Yeah. Oh,
You've
I
heard that?
remember this very clearly. Yeah.
Yes, and that is utter nonsense. And I'll tell you why. Okay, this concept of not starting a sentence with the word and actually comes back down to the 19th century, like catechism classes, where the Catholic schools where they were teaching students how to write. They used to take grammar classes for them as well, to make sure children under the age of 9 do not stray away from the point. You do not start a sentence with and, so that you can't go off. You can't say and this also happened and you go off.
Yeah.
Was just to keep children in line for written context. It was not a grammar rule, it was just a thumb rule for discipline.
Okay.
How did
Interesting.
this become the grammar standpoint? That's because nobody went down and actually found the origin of this art. I don't get into it because it makes me cry, because I've had arguments, I have fought with management people in organizations saying, you know what, your knowledge is coming from what somebody talks about in the local chowk, right? This not starting a sentence with the word and is just, it was just created one day out of thin air, just to imbibe discipline, right? Like I remember, I think in school they also never used to let us experiment with the colons and semicolons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, try not to, because why do you use a colon? Why do you use a semicolon? Can change. Hey, forget it. We are now in the era of the dash.
Yeah. M dash,
It's
N dash.
Yeah, it's just a dash. Okay, forget the colon and semicolon. We'll arrange its funeral later. It's dead. It's just a dash these days. So I'd say, if you really want to always hone your skill, this handbook called The Elements of Style is something that will never go out of style, because he explores the English written language from a perspective of audio and what just makes sense. You will come away from this after reading that book knowing everything going forward has to be a gut instinct when it comes to English, right? Because at the end of the day, a language was created out of nothing.
Yeah.
So the laws were only created from things that made sense. So, yes, while the laws of grammar are rigid, there are breaks in these laws, and you have to just find these breaks to make the language more interesting, more like beautiful, like the canvas, like throw your paint on the canvas and see what it throws up. Maybe not like that exactly, because some rules are rigid, but you have to question these stupid status quos that are being put out there, because it's something that was drummed into them from a young age. The person was telling me that do not start a sentence with and. I'm like, I want to find the person who told you that and slap that person first. Okay? And then I'll come to you. Okay. Okay. First, let's start at the grassroots level of punishment. Then we'll come to you. Okay. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And that I have been challenged.
Yeah.
I have been I have been asked to, like, either do it, it's either their way or the highway. Do not start a sentence with and. But trust me when I tell you, I think I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn as they come. Of course, having grown up, I've become maybe a little less stubborn, but stubborn nonetheless. If
I don't
I
know about that, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to listen nowadays a little bit more, at least a little more, not too much, but it's that inability to accept things that I know is wrong. If I don't know, I will accept your perspective, because I'll be like, okay, I don't know, you're telling me, so now I'll know. But if you don't know, but I know, trust me, I will make sure you know by the end of it as well, right? And that was that whole 6-month battle I had with an organization about starting a sentence with the letter and. He would keep telling me, don't do it, and I just keep doing it, till he backed down and found out the answer himself when I shared him the reference material to read about the history of the word, I mean, this whole concept. And finally, it was able to dawn upon him that, oh, oh, like, it was a realization moment for him as well. Great. Everybody walks away from this entire fiasco smarter and wiser. So great.
Yeah. No, but that's cool.
And then that's, I think, where I think things that have stuck with me. And then if you have to get down to the basics, I would say I enjoy a good fiction novel from Sidney Sheldon now and then. It's like
Oh
that.
my God, that's my mother.
Yeah, I don't want to insult him because he's a great author. Actually, I think it's a pen name, if I'm not correct. If maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe there
I'm
is a guy
not
called.
sure. No, no,
I'm not sure.
I.
Yeah, yeah. I've read somewhere that might be a pen name. I'm not sure, but yeah. But he is like what you call the junk food. It's great. It's tasty. It's really nice to read. It's not something that you should use as an inspirational like benchmark, but enjoy an author who knows how to give you fun stuff. Right? It's like what Chetan Bhagat does in India as well.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
he
yeah.
doesn't
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't
I'm
want to mess
sorry,
with
I enjoyed reading Two States and
you.
5 Point Someone.
Thank you. I actually just reread Two States a few days ago when I was on like I had a 2 day wellness leave. I'm like, you know what? I haven't read about Arjun Malhotra and Ananya, what is that, Ananya something. Those two characters I haven't read about it. Those two characters stuck with me for a long time because he took this concept of intercultural marriage and
Yeah.
just made it fun because that's exactly how it's going to be. It's two people who don't know anything about anybody about each other. You have, and it's still today, even to this day, I have so many North Indian friends, people who I'm very close to, and they're just so mesmerized by what we do, and I'm equally mesmerized by what they do. Like, I've attended a marriage and I'm like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you guys are doing this. Like I'm the one to complain. Ours start at maybe 6 a.m., but you guys are like going backwards,
Yeah,
starting
but
at 8.
ours are, it's only like 5 minutes. Okay, Malayali weddings are literally 5 minutes and we're done.
Yeah, exactly. And I went for this wedding and the fair started. I was like, hey, how long is this gonna take? He's like, 3, 4 hours. I'm like, 3, 4 hours. Like,
Yeah, I
what?
know.
Yeah, but yeah, so that I like that book, and I respect Chetan Bhagat as a guy who wants to reach the masses. He wants to tell fun stories, and he writes it very simply, so even that layman who struggles with the language can go through his book like properly. You're not going to struggle like when you pick up Shashi Tharoor's novel and he tells you from the
Oh,
get-go,
yeah.
hey, I'm going to confuse you, be ready. Yeah. Hey, by
And
the way,
keep
my
a
favorite,
thesaurus handy
yeah,
and a
by the way, my
dictionary.
my favorite word that I actually think on some level is a thing that resonates with me is Tharoor introduced us to it. It's called defense rate, which basically means a person who always likes to argue his viewpoint and stick by it and debate it and make you believe that this is it. Defense rate. Yeah, yeah. So that's something that yeah. So yeah, I think that answers that question because these are these first things that would always come to my mind. If probably we sat down for a couple of hours, we could dissect it even further, look at other content that has
Yeah, of
probably.
course.
But and also for copywriters out there, something that was very instrumental in those, even though very short-lived career, 8 months as an advertising copywriter, something that really worked. People check out. His name is Guy French, and I'm sure most copywriters know him. He's
Okay.
he was back in the day. I think he led all the greatest agencies of the world that you can think of. Ogilvy, and before it was called Ogilvy, Benson Mather. So he used to lead all those content initiatives there before he moved into becoming $1 million like consultant. Like if you wanted him on your campaign, you're going to shell out big bucks, right? Because he's Guy French. And if anybody wants to know how talented he is as a copywriter, and a person who again pushed the status quo, check out his XO beer copy. It is
Okay.
something that blows your mind. Where I'm very sure they gave him a banner with a beer image, and they're like, write 2 lines of copy, and he said, no, here's 9 lines of copy. Yeah, he used to write copy that was so long, saying, if it's interesting, a person will read it. if you're writing
Hmm.
if you're writing just generic nonsense, you only have 6 words to tell them what you want to say and move on. But if you're writing great content, he's the only guy who, in the form of advertising, they used to run 1,000 word articles about exo beer, and he used to
Wow.
just pile in. He'll make you laugh when you're reading this entire article. He'd At one point he's like, oh, the person who didn't understand this, shoo shoo, go away, and then dot dot dot, and he'll start writing. Like, you'll just get lost in his work. So yes, please check him out. He will make you question these pillars that advertising agencies nowadays put forth to copywriters to try and kind of like restrict them and bind them. No, man, break that chain. Check out what guys did. Check out how they became successful because never it was never a their way or the highway. It was more of a let me tell you what I know and what I think works, and let's find out if it works. If it doesn't work, fine, I'll never do this again. Yeah, but you have to give it one shot, right?
No, but it's really cool to kind of hear the things that have influenced you. And yeah, great recommendations. I'm sure everyone will check them out. And I'll obviously mention them in the episode notes as well for people to refer. But yeah, now we're coming towards the end of this interview. And we always end with these last two questions. So the first one is, what are your aspirations? These can be personal, professional, creative, basically things you're looking forward to in the near or even distant future.
Okay. Uh, I that's a very introspective kind of a question, because I think especially at this juncture, if you had probably asked me this question 4 years ago, I'd probably have much more pinpointed answer. But at this point where I have done the usual rat races, I've chased that fatter paycheck, I've chased that fancier lifestyle, that life that probably a younger, more naive person would want to chase, like the fast life, living the high life, traveling, going abroad, like just doing that shit, like just dropping big bucks here and there. But I think somewhere along the line, you realize that yes, money might fulfill a lot of things, hands down,
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go money, like go that. But then on some, I don't think that's going to be something that I would want to chase now going forward, because I've been able to prove that yes, I can make money. Now I need to, in the content perspective, I need to prove that I can do the things that maybe I initially set out to do and maybe set out to achieve. It's not just movies, by the way. I also always wanted to write a book, and I
Okay.
always want to write a fictional book. I do not believe in being subjective with my work. I want to write fantastical stories, like like if I maybe like an Ad Astra in like a novel form. Who knows? Something that can just be like, wow, that's unbelievable, but great work.
Yeah.
So that is definitely going to be one of my aspirations going forward. Like I'm currently living a phase where I've named it. I've taken inspiration from the Jonas Brothers documentary. It's called Nikhil Menon, Chasing Happiness, and what is happiness? Second question.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
Hmm.
going to be what I'm going to do, and that's an aspiration from there. Personally, I have learned that from a personal view front, you cannot really actually have a life of too many aspirations, because I've learned that aspirations are good, aspirations drive the soul, but aspirations are also a source of dejection and maybe a lot of heartbreak in your life. So I would always recommend, take it as it comes, man. Like don't set out, don't calendar your life. A lot of people love to put a lot of order and structure into their life, saying, when I'm this is going to happen, when I'm this old, that's going to happen. That's great, set those goals, nobody's telling you not to, but do not live your life geared to those personal goals where it could be either detrimental to actual growth,
Hmm.
or it
Yeah.
could just be like, it could be something that doesn't let you sleep peacefully at night, because I've seen goals do that to people, right? So I don't think personally we should take anything from a goal perspective. Let things happen. If you say that, okay, I want to be married at 35 and I want to have settled down by then, oh, that's great, that's fantastic, that's a good way to look at it. But do not start kicking your life into gear thinking that the deadline at 35
Yeah,
is what I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to do. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
go at about it organically. I have a friend, she's very close to me, and she always says this to me. She says, let things happen organically. You might actually find a little bit more happiness in organic success. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. That's great. And she's right. Nowadays I am just taking everything organically and I'm a little bit at peace, because I realize we don't really have a lot of control. And if you're
Yeah,
a
we
person
don't.
and believes in God, then you should know that free will is a myth. So so either way, when you look at it, it just
Okay,
gets
then.
yeah. So that's an answer to your question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then the last question, which I guess in a way you've sort of tied your answer in with this, but I'm still going to ask it if you have anything else to add. What is a piece of advice or learning you'd like to share? And again, this can be personal, professional, creative, whatever. Basically, something you've experienced and you just wish people were aware of.
Um, I would say two things to people out there. One thing is, if you're chasing success, that's great. But do not belittle the people around you, because they might not be chasing it at the same pace you are. And I have seen that throughout. Like, a lot of people who, like, I had friends who, when I was still in the industry, like just starting off, those small paychecks, and there are already people crossing that lakh a month is always your first benchmark, right, in your career, before you move into the 2 lakhs and the 3 lakhs and the 4 lakhs and the 5 lakhs, wherever you want to go with your life, right? So when we are all pushing that and trying to get there in that first 1 or 2 years, and somebody off the get-go starts off right there, somebody has started their career at your dream, right? And it could unnerve you, it could make you question things, right? But I think all of that is put to rest if that person doesn't belittle you. And I would suggest that to everyone out there who's chasing success, let the people around you catch up, prop them up, but never put them down, encourage them, but never destroy hope. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I wanted to tell people. The second thing that I would say is, uh, career is very important. Yes, work is God, as they call it, whatever your career may be, but it should never come at the cost of your personal relationships with anybody, be it
Yeah.
family, friends, or lovers. Do not let anything be sacrificed for work, because trust me, I'm a person who has chased success, and I have very successful friends around me. And I'm talking about people who are movers and shakers in the global startup like engine, and these people only have the same thing to tell me: the things that they have lost in that hunt for success. If you are hungry for success, know the price that you might end up paying. So just be a little empathetic and know that not everybody is chasing your success, only you are doing it on your own. So either you bring people on the same page, or try your level best to explain it to them, because trust me, sometimes the top, it's a lonely place. I don't know what the top is, I haven't got there, but I know people at the top, and trust me, it doesn't look like a lot of fun. And nowadays they're in that, they're in the catch up, they're just trying to hold on to people, right? Because the people that they have lost, and then over time they realize, something else could have made me happy. I have a friend who's so successful. Okay, so it's a very interesting story, because I've never really actually tried to explore like human emotions, because I've always felt like, again, it should be an organic approach, right? Whatever your emotions are. But she told me something that has still stuck with me. She's like, even though when I was younger and I was making a lot less, I think I was much more happier. And I was like, I don't believe that, because I know the lifestyle you're living right now. I see what your paycheck has done for you. She's like, yeah, my paycheck has made people believe I'm happy. End of story. That's it.
Well, and on that enlightening note, we have now come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for being here, Nikhil. It was great talking to you. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, I have not actually had a lot of time to dissect my own mind and think about things from all these angles. Yeah, definitely. And it's always great talking to you, Sangeeta, to catch up. I know you're very busy. Pick up the call once in a while. I'll call you. Okay.
But you have to call for me to pick up.
I always call you my mind. I'm calling you from my mind. Oh,
No, but thank you so much for being here.
100%. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
So that was my conversation with Nikhil Menon, closing this episode with an article written and narrated by Nikhil. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week with a new guest and a new chronicle to share. It's the season finale, so be sure to tune in. Talk soon!
So this is an article that I wrote in 2019 for Thrive Global, and the reason why I picked this particular like a thought leadership article, or rather guest post, which I wrote for Thrive Global as a reference for today, is because I think it uh, perfectly summarizes the current conversation that's happening in the writing ecosystem, which is the arrival of Chat GPT and the probable decline in writing jobs. While a lot has been said, I think this article might shed some light, even though not directly connected, might help people understand what technology has always meant for the human race. So, the article starts off like this: what does COVID 19 mean for the future of work? The death of all traditional enterprises. Business of tomorrow need to start focusing on employees today. Despite it being a constant topic of debate between HR professionals across the globe, the future of work conversation never ceases to end. As the scope of work evolves constantly, the finer points begin to follow suit. Hence, it is important to understand the course of the debate's evolution. The term future of work might have started off initially as a need to embrace futuristic tools, but has inevitably transformed into a wake up call for organizations regarding the employee experience. So, how did it all go down? Since time immemorial, the labor market has faced a continuous uphill battle, probably around the time Johannes Gutenberg invented the mechanical printing press. And how can we forget the historic 18th century era when weavers and artisans were pushed to the proverbial edge of poverty when the mechanized loom came into existence? During World War II, Alan Turing's Bombay machine, which was instrumental in decoding the Nazi Enigma code, was able to decode millions of lines of encrypted message in hours, thereby negating the need for thousands of analysts to crunch numbers over a span of weeks and months. Fearing the loss of livelihood, the working class has always been predominantly apprehensive towards technology. However, as organizations began their transformative journey towards digital disruption, technology has managed to wade through public discomfort and arise as the tool for forging the future. Even in the case of Alan Turing's machine, the underlying truth was that technology helped streamline the decoding process by using mathematics and technology, thereby increasing efficiency and reducing lag. Over the last 2 decades, global enterprises, Fortune 500s, and small medium businesses have managed to adopt a slew of innovative solutions like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, blockchain technology, and data analytics to help improve processes, functions, and systems. Whilst AI and ML manage to reduce redundant tasks, beef up cybersecurity, and encourage automation, data analytics blew the customer acquisition cost metric out of the water by helping companies leverage the power of the internet. By disrupting every possible industry, sector, and vertical, technology established itself as a key business pillar for enterprise success. And soon enough, employees began utilizing these tools for quicker responses, timely support, and an efficient working order. And all of a sudden, the need for skilled labor to operate these tools became a business criticality, and the subsequent shortage of talent has resulted in a depleting bottom line. In a market survey report conducted in 2019, the banking and financial services industry, business services, telecom and media industries saw a cumulative shortage of over 14 million workers by the year, will actually see by the year 2030, though I think these numbers have changed right now. Therefore, to combat this shortage of skilled employees, enterprises all over the globe have begun looking inward for solutions on how to retain their existing workforce. And subsequently, the future of work debate entered its next phase, the employee experience. By empowering employees with increased ownership, relaxed working hours, and career improvement, that is, upskilling or reskilling, companies have spent heavily on constant innovation and research to help improve their overall EX, that is, the employee experience. Businesses of tomorrow need to start focusing on employees today. However, the outbreak of COVID 19, the coronavirus disease, sent the world of business down the rabbit hole, as it has brought about an element from the debate that most organizations have shied away from, remote working. Even though the idea of remote work isn't relatively new, its magnitude has been negligible to say the least. Up until 2010, corporations have argued that they do not possess the infrastructure or bandwidth to support the whole work from home methodology. Yet, with the advent of better monitoring tools and improved connectivity, that argument has been silenced. Companies rarely entertain the idea despite its proven benefits surrounding employee well being and mental health. Remote teams only existed for operations that deemed it necessary, with the rest of the workforce confined to an institution's four walls. With the contagious disease spreading rapidly, every single enterprise, conglomerate, and Fortune 500 has been forced to shift to a remote model of work for prolonged business continuity. Employees are now forced to sit at home and work in an attempt to slow down the spread of the disease. Companies that had given the idea fair thought were surprisingly ready to combat the onset of a mandatory remote working model. However, lesser prepared organizations were sent scrambling for solutions to keep the lights on. In conclusion, the very crux of the debate constantly changes, mandating a requirement from enterprises to innovate and adapt. Archaic systems and practices are being ushered out of the door, and more sustainable working models are becoming the regular norm. This is helping employees focus on other interactive practices, spend more time with family, balance work and leisure, and dissolve the exertion that accompanies long commutes. COVID 19 has truly become the death of a traditional enterprise.